Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Cisco exam updates. Today, we will discuss how Cisco is approaching exam updates going forward, but we'll use ENCOR as our specific example. But by the time we're done, you will have information pertaining to the exam updates that you are going to be able to take with you from now into your future. So that way there are no surprises going forward for anybody when it comes to Cisco certification exam. So I'm really excited to share this information with you. If you're not aware of it, Cisco has posted it publicly. It's available for everyone to utilize. So I'm going to just give you the access to these tools and make sure that you have the opportunity while you're preparing for Cisco exams to make sure you're not blindsided. Last thing I like as an instructor being blindsided, or even as a student myself of newer Cisco technologies being blindsided by exam updates. And I don't want any of you going forward to ever have to worry about being blindsided when it comes to Cisco. All right, folks. So first question for everybody. If you haven't logged into the chat area, please do so right now and play along. Are you currently preparing for any of these Cisco exams? Or let's rephrase that, any Cisco exam, folks. If it's not on this list, please go ahead and chat in the one you are preparing for. So some people might be preparing for NSLED or NARCI or ENCOR or CCNA. One of the challenges I always faced in my entire career when it came to certification exams, it didn't matter whether it was a Microsoft exam or a CompTIA exam, a Cisco exam, an ISC squared exam, anything, was all of a sudden the vendor doing an update. And whether it was a minor update or a major update, the challenge you face now is knowing that in 6 months from now or 3 months from now or whenever, the current exam you are taking is no longer going to exist. That's like completely demoralizing. So many times that happened to me in my career. And it's frustrating because now you're sitting there going, do I stop? Do I wait for the new exam? Do I continue down this path and be very, very fast and quick to make sure that I can get this current exam under my belt before the changes? And the reason why it was always such panic was because of the fact that these were major changes these vendors were making. But now Cisco is taking a different approach. And I hope other vendors take this approach going forward as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're currently preparing for an exam or you plan on preparing for an exam, folks. This is, the mindset that we typically get into when we are preparing for an exam and all of a sudden there was a upcoming change announcement, or the possibility, because it's been 4 years since the last exam update, there's got to be one coming down the road which could completely negate all of my studies. So what is your mentality right now, folks, in regards to your preparation for any of those Cisco exams? Are you potentially thinking of waiting until after the new exam is released to start your studies? If you are, put in A. If you're thinking of waiting until after the new exam is released to continue your studies, so I'm pausing and then continuing on, then pick B. Or C, you're going to keep going with your studies, but you're going to rush. You're going to rush to take the current exam before the new exam is released. Right? Maybe that is your mindset. And then D, you're thinking of continuing your studies and not rushing and taking the new exam after it is released. There really is no right or wrong answer here, folks. But now that Cisco is doing what they're doing, great news is that more of us have the opportunity to use D. That's right. D is the one that will actually give us the least amount of stress going forward. I don't have to rush. I can continue what I'm doing, and then I can still take the new exam after it is released. Why is that? Because of the new agile approach, small incremental updates that Cisco is doing over time. So like I said, we're going to use ENCOR as our example today, and you'll see that you could do C or D, preferably D if you can't be ready for the exam update, But D, absolutely, without a problem. We're going to go through that right now. So let's visit Cisco's website. We're going to hang out on Cisco's website pretty much. Oh, look at that. That's wonderful. Scratching head. What did he forget to do before the webinar started? Let's get that sorted out. There we go. That should solve all problems. Hey, look at that. There's Cisco's website. All right. So, folks, we're going to go to Cisco's website. We're already there, cisco.com. And anytime you want to check out exam objectives, you go under Learn, you go under Certifications and Exams, and I like to click on View All Exams. Yeah, there's a lot of hot links here, but in reality, they can just take you down a rabbit hole. I love going View All Certifications and then picking my certification that I'm interested in. So I'll scroll down here, and we want ENCOR. So ENCOR is an enterprise certification exam. So here's Enterprise. We'll come across and we'll see CCNP Enterprise. I'll click on that. And then if I scroll down, we'll see that we have our core exam, ENCOR, and then we have a bunch of elective exams. So if you're not aware of this, in order to get your CCNP Enterprise designation, you need one core exam and one concentration exam. So I said elective, it's concentration they use. And that's going to give you your CCNP professional level certification. So if we scroll down, you have to take this one. You have no choice, and you must pass this one. And then you can take any other one you want in this particular list, and that will give you your CCNP Enterprise. In addition, people find ENCOR very, very hard. It's because most people don't realize that ENCOR is also the entry-level certification exam for the CCIE lab exam. So if you plan on taking the CCIE lab exam, this is the exam you would have to take, the written exam. When you pass this, then they'll let you take the lab exam. So if you haven't passed this exam, you can't take the lab exam. So there's a lot of stuff in this Enterprise Core exam that was never in CCNP level training in the past. If you think about the old like route, switch, and T-shoot, or we go even further back, if you're old enough to remember things like BSCI, BCMSN, and all those different options that existed. There's stuff now in ENCOR that we never would have covered in those because they were CCNP level, and then we had a specific exam for CCIE written to then qualify you for the exam, where now ENCOR does both. So there is a lot of in-depth coverage here. There is a lot of side little services that you might learn just a chunk of, so that way there you can answer a simple multiple choice question on, which makes it a harder exam than a lot of the other exams that Cisco offers. All right, so with that in mind though, let's jump in here and click on ENCOR, and I want to take a peek at the current exam objectives. So I'll click on Review Exam Objectives now. And under the exam objectives, we'll see that it provides to us the outline of the current exam that they are testing you on. So we could expand these out if we wanted to, but I'm going to grab the PDF instead. It'll be a lot easier to view the PDF than it is to expand all of that out. All right, so with the PDF open, you'll see that they tell you in the PDF that this is version 1.0 of the exam. And then these are all the topics that they're likely to test you on. And I always use the word likely to test you on because Cisco has the right to test you on stuff on the exam that's not here and not test you on stuff that is here if they feel like it. These are general guidelines for content likely to be included in the exam. Essentially, they're saying there might be mistakes in here, and you can't hold that against us if you take the exam and you get stuff on the exam that we never listed here. Sorry, but, not sorry when it's all said and done. So these are the current exam objectives. Now, when we build our courses here for CCNA, for ENCOR, for an RC, we build them based, one, on the exam objectives, but two, based on our own exam experience. So that way there, we have the opportunity to supplement what is missing from the material, the course, and the exam objectives to make sure that you have the chance to fully prepare as best as you possibly can for what is going to appear on the certification exam. But if Cisco all of a sudden tomorrow morning decides to change questions, modify, stuff like that, well, there'll be a time period where nobody's aware of those changes until people actually take the exam and ultimately are able to either update a course or update whatever information that needs to be updated. So they're very secretive about their exams, but they're getting less so when it comes to updates and changes, which is what I'm really happy about now. So up here, you can see a new blue box that's been added recently. And they are letting you know now that enterprise exams are being updated. And you need to be aware of that and potentially learn more about it. So that way there you have the opportunity to make any adjustments or changes you need to your certification prep. So if you don't see a blue box when you go to a particular exam objective page, it means that there's no update right now. You are seeing the current edition of the exam that's being tested on, right? So if you see a blue box, it means you are seeing the current edition of the exam, but it's going to change. And so it'd be really nice to know when it's going to change. And they tell you these objectives are only good until September 19th, 2023. These objectives will be changed on September 20th to something else. And they are upfront now about what that is. And they are even letting us know going forward that they are going to make consistent, regular changes on yearly basis to all of their exams. And let's check out where we can keep an eye on that. They have what is called now the Cisco Certification Roadmap. How many of you have seen this? If you have, say yes. If not, you've seen it now. And I put a chat in the chat area or a link in the chat area for all of you to have access to this. This is an amazing resource. It really is. And I wish more vendors would do stuff like this. What this does is it helps us plan, prepare, and excel. I'm not so sure about excel, but definitely plan and prepare, all right? This roadmap allows us to stay up to date with relevant information to keep us informed about any certification exam changes that Cisco is making. So if you want to sign up for automatic notifications, something you might want to consider. Or you could just put a reminder in your calendar to at least check this once every 3 months if you are Cisco certification bound. Whether you plan on taking an exam in 3 months from now or 6 months from now or a year from now, it might be wise to just stay on top of this. So that way there you can be notified of any changes, whether it's automatically or manually you doing it yourself. So Cisco is telling us here that they will be reviewing their exams once a year. That's what they're telling us. They will be announcing any changes to their exams once a year. They will be publishing new exam updates once a year. So let's take a peek at Enterprise as an example. Right down here. Let's go down here right now. Notice that it says November 2022 to January 2023. Don't let this throw you off, all right? Quarter 2, quarter 1. Cisco's fiscal year starts August 1st and ends July 31st. I don't know why they chose that, but they did way back in the day, and that is what they do. So with that in mind, don't worry about the quarter numbers, just look at the months. And you'll see here that from November of last year until the end of January this year, they spent time reviewing the enterprise certification exams. So ENCOR, NRC, NSLED, SD-WAN, and the rest of them that are part of that grouping of enterprise exams. Why are they doing this? They're doing this to make sure those exams are still relevant. Now, When was the last time they reviewed that exam and updated us about it? Well, when it came out, approximately 3 years ago. That's right. So this exam that we currently have for ENCOR has been in existence for 3 years. But you know what? Based on my experience, the exam has changed in those 3 years. Were the blueprints ever updated? Were we ever notified of those changes? Never. That, in my opinion, is not fair. Right? But it is what it is. But see, Cisco is trying to be more transparent now. And so every year they're letting you know now, we are going to update our exams. We are going to update the blueprints. And we are going to make sure we take out technologies that aren't relevant to your jobs, your career, the real world that are potentially still hanging out in our exams. And we're going to add new things to it a little bit all the time. So instead of having these major revisions of certification exams every 3 years or 5 years or 7 years like they used to do, we're talking about minor revisions every year. So what does that mean for all of us? It means that the chances of ENCOR still being around 10 years from now is really good. Maybe even 15 years or 20 years from now. When I think back to all the previous Cisco exams I ever took that were renamed, revamped, changed, and so on and so forth, right, on a 3-year basis or a 5-year basis or a 10-year, right, we were always getting completely blindsided first and then an entire certification revamp. It looks like those days are behind us finally in the world of Cisco. I mean, Cisco could change their mind tomorrow again and go back to the old ways. But now what can happen here is that you know that as you are preparing for enterprise today, that's going to be around. And they're constantly going to slowly make changes to it over time. So when it comes time for you to recertify in 3 years from now, more than likely this entire track is still in existence and you're going to have the opportunity to recertify. And when you recertify, right, you're going to be recertifying an entire exam, but you're going to know now the difference between what you originally had to learn versus what is now covered in addition to what you originally learned. And you might only have to review the old stuff and then learn the new stuff, making your recertifications a lot easier. So there's a lot of benefits to this, a lot of positives to this. But we can see here they reviewed it, right? Then what did they do? They made changes, they made adjustments. And then if you notice, it says here, that under blue, they announce. So here is our blue enterprise. So they announced those changes. And when did they do that? They did it in March, if my memory serves me well. So they did it in March. And they announced in March that there are changes. They released a new blueprint with those changes in them. So you could compare both blueprints side by side if you want to. And then they say within about 3 to 6 months, the new exam will be available for people to take. Now, if we go back to our previous page, we'll see here that it is September 20th that the new exam for ENCOR is going to be released. But if we look at our certification roadmap, what are we going to find? We are going to find that they were supposed to publish the new exam sometime from May, June, or July. Supposed to. But they're not. They said what? September for enterprise. So that just gives you extra time. So now you know September 20th is when the new exam's going to be released. So now you have the option. Do I rush, and try to do the new exam before, the old exam before September 20th? Or do I take my time, take a breather, and say, you know what? I'm going to take the new exam. Because we're talking about minor updates. If it's minor updates, that means what you're already preparing for, most of that should still apply to the new exam. And that's why when we go back to the question, thinking of continuing my studies and not rushing and taking the new exam after it's released, or potentially, if I have the time, to take the old exam before the new one's released, right? You're in the right place at that point in time. There's no need to stop anymore, wait, and figure out if you're doing the right thing. Cisco is helping you make sure that you can just keep on with your studies. All right, so I know many of you now really want to know what's the difference between the old exam and the new exam. So let's go ahead and analyze that. So we already have the old exam blueprint open right now. Let's find the new exam blueprint, because if they announce the new exam, it's got to be somewhere. Where do I get that information? On this roadmap page. Let's scroll down. You'll see here that they have security, enterprise, collaboration, data center here so far. Let's click on enterprise. And now we'll see ENCOR is listed. Version 1.1 is what the new exam is going to be. So let's click on exam topics. And here they are, the version 1.1 exam topics. So what could we do? We could go ahead and put these side by side and start analyzing them side by side. A lot of work to do this. I'm pretty lazy and I don't really want to do it. So I'll show you in a moment that Cisco has done it for you. They have. And we're going to go through that document that shows you the changes, which is wonderful. I'm glad. But when I first started going through these side by side, the big thing that stood out to me, folks, was that the number of changes that were being made to the objectives in the exam was very minor. Meaning that what you have already done and studied and prepped for means that you don't have to go back and relearn any of that or cover that. Maybe a slight review later on down the road, because it may be months and months and months before you decide to take the exam. But you're already on the right track. You're already on the right path to success. So some of the things we're going to notice here that stand out to me right away is something like this. Differentiate hardware and software switching mechanisms. Process switching, Ceph switching, MAC address table, TCAM. All right, so here is a change they have made. This is a change they're making. What does it say? Describe hardware software switching mechanisms such as Ceph, CAM, TCAM, FIB, RIB, and adjacency tables. That's pretty much the same. Yeah, it is. So if you took my ENCOR course right now, the version 1.0 course, I cover this. Well, now it's been changed to this. It's the same thing. You already have the coverage you need, which means for a lot of these topics, there's no need to panic because you already have the information you need at your fingertips from us to help you prepare for the old exam and a lot of what's currently on the new exam. You might be saying, Raymond, that's only one example. All right, fine. I get it. So let's go ahead and go back to the roadmap. Look at the release notes here. Under the roadmap, there's a release notes right at the very top. We click on that, and they give us a nice little PDF, and they even tell us a minimum of up to 20% changes. Now, here's the thing. When they say 20% changes, it's what? 20% changes to the exam, 20% changes to the not notes. I was reading James. James says Encore has patch notes. I said no. All right, so 20% changes to the objectives was what I was trying to say, or 20% changes to the exams. So does that mean a change to something like how they describe an objective is still part of that 20%? Like changing something from describe to interpret, or define to describe, or from explain to describe, or yeah, absolutely. That's a change. And that could be part of the 20%. The topic and the coverage may be still the exact same. That's why it's important for you to visit when they have these updates and find out, hey, what has really changed? And does it really make that much of a difference for my preparation? And you'll find that a lot of the times with these minor changes, it's not. There might be a few things here or there that you might have to supplement or wait for me to update my videos to provide that extra information in detail. But folks, these small changes are to prevent us from panicking, prevent us from getting off track when it comes to studying and taking the certification exams. So these are all the ones under the enterprise track that are being updated. There's even a new exam that's coming out. So you'll be able to see any new exams up to 6 months in advance in this release information as well. But here it is. Version 1.1 of Encore, comparisons side by side of what has changed. So take a peek at this. They removed fabric capacity planning and just left it as fabric and cloud. All right. So I might have to add a little bit of more cloud to my content to get you ready for that. But everything else still applies. So if you're already studying Encore, you still have to know all of this for the new exam and then add a little bit of cloud to it. Here they change it from analyzing wireless LAN deployments to describing wireless network design principles. Describing from analyzing. Typically, describing means easier questions, folks. That's typically what it means, because analyzing would require more critical thinking, whereas describing means your ability to just pick out of a lineup a term, a definition, a topic, something like that. So it almost seems like these questions are going to be a little bit easier than what was there. And then they added client density as well. So there's still 1.1 in 1.2A, 1.2B. So if we go, for example, to the actual objectives, where'd they go? I lost them over here. There they are. So this would be version 1.1 right here behind me now. So what does it show us for? Yeah, so 1.2A, wireless deployment models. That hasn't changed from the original. Client location services, that hasn't changed. So if it's not showing up in the side-by-side comparison, it's because it hasn't changed. This one here, differentiate between on-prem cloud deployments. Totally removed. They're not even going to test you on that anymore. So that might be because they never even had questions for that in the current Encore exam. It's possible, right? And maybe there was questions for that. And maybe they decided, you know what, that's just a waste of people's time, energy, and questions on the exam. There's more important things to test them on. So if there were questions pertaining to that, they're all gone now. And you don't have to worry about differentiating between on-prem and cloud infrastructure deployments. QoS. Looks like QoS is going to get a little bit harder on Encore. Why do I say that? Because you used to have to just describe. Now you have to interpret. So it's quite possible now they'll provide you with maybe a QoS output. Policy map, class map, and then you have to be able to interpret that from a wired or wireless standpoint. Or maybe they're showing you the output of a wireless LAN controller, and you're going to have to interpret that wireless QoS configuration, where before you really only had to describe it. But one of the things to consider too, remember, is that they have slowly upgraded and changed Encore questions on the current exam over the last 3 years and never notified anybody. So is it possible that the current questions on the old Encore exam are actually interpret-based questions and not describe-based questions? That is even possible. Meaning that they've realized, oops, the exam questions are actually not describe-based questions, they're interpret-based questions. So let's just go ahead and throw interpret here as opposed to describe. So those are kind of the things that, they're making adjustments. It's not necessarily about adjusting potentially an entire exam pool and coming out with all new exam questions. It's realizing the deficiencies they have right now between their objectives potentially and the actual exam. So there are many reasons why they're taking this approach, but one of the great things is that they're now transparent with us and we can stay on top of what we really need to be aware of as the exam evolves on a year-to-year basis, as opposed to them just simply making changes all the time and us never really learning about it or knowing about it. This particular topic here that we cover in ENCOR right now in my course will prepare you 100% for what you need to know over here. Look what they added: root guard and BPDU guard as spanning tree. Well, I cover that. I cover port fast, root guard, BPDU guard. So with that in mind, right, current ENCOR course actually prepares you for the new exam objectives. No love for BPDU filter. Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. And I'm surprised they don't have port fast listed here. So there, to me, already there's something that is missing. But let's take a peek at all of the exam objectives for that one. So what do they show us? Yeah, so no, they don't even have listed anything pertaining to what? Port fast. But more than likely, you're going to see port fast on the certification exam. So where's that other doc? So that was the version 1.0 and version 3. Where's port fast? Is it in here? I don't see port fast at all. So again, there's even something missing, in my opinion, from version 1.1. Somebody missed that. Where is that port fast? It's not there. So that's something that they might have to update for version 1.2, in my opinion. So with that in mind, let's add that back up to the top here so I can stop losing it. There we go. This is something I currently do not cover in ENCOR. I do not cover area types in ENCOR. Why? Because in the original exam objectives for 1.0, there is no mention of area types whatsoever when it comes to OSPF. So they mention normal areas, so backbone areas and all other areas that are normal. But they never tested you on the different area types for OSPF, such as stub areas, totally stubby areas, not so stubby areas, and totally not so stubby areas. That's the first time you've heard those. I'm not making them up, folks. Those are legit area types in OSPF. And so that is what they're referring to here, being able to potentially compare and contrast when you would actually use those different area types, under which situations and circumstances. But that is specific to OSPF. EIGRP does not have area types. That is purely for OSPF. So when I cover OSPF area types in NARCI, the advanced routing course. So if you were, let's say, wanting to prepare fully for this exam before we were ever able to update our ENCOR course, you could just go over to an RC and watch the video that's dedicated to OSPF area types, and you would learn everything you need to know about OSPF area types as well in that case. So multiple ways. We are going to add area types to ENCOR, but if you were in a hurry, we already have videos for that in an RC. One thing we do not cover in the current ENCOR is policy-based routing. And now we're going to have to cover policy-based routing. You're going to have to learn about it. Something that we cover in an RC because it is tested on in an RC, the advanced routing course. So I'll take what I have in there. I'll bring it over here and teach it in ENCOR. But we'll definitely have to take some time to learn about policy-based routing now for ENCOR. So there's something that's totally deficient in our current ENCOR course, folks, that we do not cover, that we will definitely have to add along with area types. You'll notice here that network time protocol is still there, but also precision time protocol has been added. which we don't cover in the old ENCOR, so we'll definitely add coverage of precision time protocol. When it comes to our multicast discussion, I'll have to add a little bit of a discussion on reverse path forwarding checks. So that'll be something we'll add. And notice how they completely removed syslog. All right, that is false, totally false. They did not completely remove syslog. If we go back to version 1.0, you'll see here that it says diagnose network problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and syslog. And then 4.2 was syslog. Redundancy. They had objective 4.1 and 4.2 had both syslog in it. So what this means here is that they simply removed 4.2 because it's not needed, because syslog is actually mentioned in what? In the objective right above it. So be very careful, folks, when you are using this side-by-side comparison with the roadmap, because you may be misled into thinking, oh, syslog's not on the exam. No, that's not true. Syslog is on the exam. It's just covered in 4.1. And you might say, well, how come they haven't said that here? Because in the original version, it was already there, so they didn't change it in the objectives. So don't get caught making the wrong impression or the wrong interpretation about something. So it doesn't hurt while you're doing the side-by-side comparison to double check what was it before, what is it now, and using all three docs to make sure you fully comprehend what is going on. One thing I can confirm 100% is that they're getting rid of NetFlow and only testing you on flexible NetFlow now. So that'll allow me to shrink up that discussion and cut it in half, so I don't have to spend so much time talking about NetFlow and then teach you about flexible NetFlow. So we can just focus on flexible now. When it comes to lines and password protection, well, I already cover it this way. I already talk about local user authentication in our ENCOR class. And I go through very specific examples. So this is one of those times where the course is already set for you to pass both versions of the exam, whichever one you choose. Right? And then we have some various wireless updates where they want to make sure that specifically 802.1x is covered, EAPOL is covered, as we saw here, and then some troubleshooting with wireless LAN configuration and client issues using the GUI only, so on and so forth, and then this wireless segmentation. So, folks, as you can see, when they talk about 20% changes, we'll go back up here and just highlight that again, 20% changes, and we scroll down and look at some of those changes. Some of them are so minor. It's them changing a word, like describe to interpret, which, from a standpoint as an instructor, that might mean I have to, next time I teach it, give a different type of an example that helps you interpret better than you did before. Or maybe I already give you examples that are going to help you answer those interpretation questions on the certification exam. So as an instructor, this is going to help me ensure that you have the latest and greatest information in the material we provide. So that way there you can prepare for the editions of the exams that you want to prepare for. And as a student, you can be confident now knowing that you're not going to be blindsided when it comes to various topics on the certification exam. Yeah, so our Yang data models removed. Let's see, let's go down here. Notice they did not touch anything here in the automation section. Nothing. They didn't add anything, didn't remove anything. So thank goodness they didn't add, number one. But I'm disappointed they didn't remove, right? Because a lot of this stuff, I think, would be, that's always been my opinion, this would be better in a different exam, in a different course that can focus on teaching you this stuff. Whereas when you think about Python and JSON and Yang data models and using REST APIs to manage everything, I get why it's here, because they want to test you on it in the CCIE lab environment. But many people at the CCNP professional level, this would be better served outside of ENCOR and in a course, an exam dedicated to this stuff. But because this is the entry-level exam for what? CCIE, they want to test you on your basic knowledge of this stuff before you go sit for the CCIE lab exam, where they are going to make you actually use this stuff in that particular exam. So that's why we are dealing with a lot of this here is more or less for CCIE and for Cisco to kind of get you excited about this stuff. So hopefully you'll start using DNA Center and many of their other products and services in your environments. All right, folks. So that is our comparison here of ENCOR. So hopefully a lot of you are more comfortable with these changes and you're not as worried or as have as much anxiety when it comes to exam changes. I used to always fear Cisco exam changes, both as an instructor and a test taker, but I'm feeling a lot more confident about the approach they're taking. I love this agile approach, this roadmap. So for those of you, for example, taking CCNA, your preparation going forward, you know that right now, April 28th, today, the last business day of April is the last day of their quarter 3. They should now be done reviewing CCNA. So if you plan on taking the CCNA exam, you know that you have anywhere from maybe minimum 6 months now, maybe 7, maybe 8 months before they release a new version of the exam. So you can start planning and prepping yourself for potential changes. If you know you can take the exam before then, great. No need to worry about the changes. If you don't think you can take the exam before they make the changes, then keep on your journey, keep on studying, keep on practicing, keep on labbing, because the amount of changes are going to be what? Minuscule, minimal. So that way there, right? You can get to that point where all of a sudden they make the changes, make the release, and then you can look and say, all right, I already know all this. This is okay. I don't know this, or this because it was never covered. All right, let me reach out to Raymond to find out when he's going to be doing that. So that way there I can get on top of that. It's not a bad idea. All right. So we want to be here as part of your journey. When are they going to hopefully announce CCNA changes? May, June, or July. Could be any of those months. And then the earliest would be August, September, or end of October for the CCNA exam change. So like I said, it's important that you come here at least once every 3 months because everything's in 3-month periods, folks. All right. So many of you, as you said, you're already preparing for the certification exam. And hopefully you grab the roadmap in the chat area, folks. If you haven't done that, grab that roadmap link, save it as one of your favorites. But how many of you feel now after this discussion that D is totally possible for most of you going forward? Like originally, folks, I would definitely be a C. Definitely I would be a C here, where I would continue my studies as fast as I possibly could, rush, take the current exam before the new exam is released. Absolutely, that's the way I used to be. And I still am that way with other vendors. But now with Cisco, I know that I can be a D here. I can continue my current studies and not rush, take my time, focus, and make sure I learn everything I can. And then in the end, when those changes are available for me to study, then I'll only have to study the changes, which will be very minor, but you'll be perfectly fine in that case. So at least most of us are out of the A or B camps going forward, and we're more in the C/D camps, which is great. So folks, if you are already part of the Stormwind family, we really want to take this opportunity to thank you for being part of this family. And we want to remind you of all the courses that we offer, so that way there you can take advantage of everything. And for those of you who are not currently part of the Stormwind family, I hope what you've seen today and the discussion I've had and the opportunities that you can have by joining the Stormwind Studios family will help accelerate your career, help you grow yourself as an individual, but more importantly, help grow what you do and are responsible for within your organization. It's always important to continue your education. Education it never ends. It never does. And if you can embrace education and continue to learn, that's important. Whether it's IT education you need, or cybersecurity, or whether it's server-based, network-based, basic computing-based, maybe you want to be a project manager, maybe you need some help in ITIL. Whatever it is, folks, We want to be part of your journey. We want you to join our family. So if you're already part of the family, awesome. Keep on practicing, learning, doing everything you can, folks. If you're not, I encourage you to jump on board, and we'd love to hear from you. So here's a link to help you join us. Take the next step. Colin has already put that, folks, for you in the chat area. So you can click on it right there in the chat area. But if you want to talk to someone on the phone, there's a phone number. Reach out to Mike Fajan or go ahead and email Mike. Mike's eager and waiting to hear from you. And no, Mike is not a bot. Absolutely not. Not a chat bot. Mike is real. And Mike wants to talk to each and every single one of you. So, folks, do you have any questions that you'd like to have addressed right now? The floor is yours. And while you're chatting in your questions, thank you very much for hanging out with me and spending some time reviewing Cisco's exam updates for ENCOR, but more importantly, how you can stay informed going forward when it comes to all Cisco exam changes as you continue your Cisco journeys. All right. Todd, you are very welcome. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either if there were certs for a lot of the other offerings that Cisco has.